You're watching Shalom TV, celebrating Jewish culture. Funding for Shalom TV has been provided by the following. And by viewers like you.
My name is Judith Alter Kallman, and I was born in Pišťany, Czechoslovakia.
What were the names of your parents?
My parents were Dora and Eugene Mannheimer.
And you are one of how many children?
I'm one of 6 children, being the youngest.
You were the youngest?
Yes.
There's a special name they called you. What did they call you?
But they called me Blümele, which means flower.
Yes.
Yes. When I was 4 years old, more or less my memory is starting in my head. Basically, when I was 5, I was involved in the war. Most vivid memory that I have is my Friday night. We had the most beautiful Shabbat. That's very vivid because my mother on Friday would put 8 candles on the table for each of the children and the parents. And the house was getting ready for cooking, baking, cleaning, putting on new clothes, fresh clothes. And my father was coming home. He would travel a lot. So he would come home, making sure he's home always for Shabbat. And just the excitement of inviting the Shabbat to the home. And the memory that I cherish really the most is when my father made Kiddush, and then he would bless each one of us. And we would stand in line. And I was always the last one to stand in line. So he gave me that extra special privilege to put me on his lap when he blessed us and hold me and keep me there a little extra more than the others. And these feelings were always sitting there. And it just gave me strength always to move forward. And then also my siblings would go to schools and they would come home and do homework, and I would sit under the table and make believe I'm part of the children doing homework, and basically these would be my memories.
When your father put you on his lap, do you remember, was he soft? Was he gentle? What do you remember about the feeling of your father?
It was a strong hug. It was a powerful hug. It was like nothing will ever happen to you. It was like, made me feel you're always protected in my arms. That's the feeling that I was with.
What was his voice like?
I don't remember his voice. The sound of his voice is not in my ear, but the feeling of his touching and the strength what he transmitted into me is strong.
Do you remember Passover at all, a Seder at all?
Later on in life, when I was in Hungary, I do.
But not...
But in my house, maybe Sukkot, because we had a courtyard. And they built a little sukkah out there. So I do have some memory of that. jumping around, singing around, having fun, but very small. The memory is very small.
Do you think you were initially a happy child?
I think so. I think everything was with me. I demanded a lot. I think I wanted attention a lot. I think I was spoiled being the baby in the house. I think the love was always there. I think I can't remember anything bad about that childhood of mine. Now, I was the youngest, and next in line was another brother, another sister. So that I would remember playing hide and seek and would play with them in the courtyard. We would always play, because it seems to me that our gate of our front door to come into our house was always locked. And I never realized, maybe because of the war was going on outside beyond there, but I think I always thought it was that we shouldn't run out. And we were always hiding and playing, but all that was very short. It all just disappeared within my memory. Near us there was a school where they trained young boys to become Nazis. And that was happening near our school. And I have memories when my brother would come home from school all beaten up. My brother came black and blue, beaten, run air, bloody nose from these boys that were trained to become Nazis. And the school was right near us. And my mother would clean him up, would calm him down, and would just accept it, that she had no choice. And she would always warn my brother, don't hit back. Just be out of their reach. Just be out of their reach.
What did your father do?
He was a salesman. We had a general store, and he was a salesman for the store. We used to sell textiles and all different kind of things. And since he spoke fluent German and Czech, he looked really, he never looked Jewish. He had a look of a distinguished man. He did very well out there, but he had to travel throughout the country to be able to be a successful businessman.
Did you consider yourself to be affluent as you look back at it?
Yes, I mean, we lived beautifully, and my mother always had our clothes custom made, and she would buy us new shoes, she would buy us a lot of new things. We always had to dress alike, that was something. And everything was very beautiful in our home. And my mother went out and she bought me, at that time, the most gorgeous, shiny, beautiful shoes. And that was heaven for me. And she opened the box and gave it to me, and I hugged it and I held on, and I wanted to put it on. And she says, no, we have to do something first. And she took my pair of shoes out of my hand. She took me into the courtyard, and she dug a hole in the courtyard, in the ground. And I'm looking at her and I'm saying, what is she doing? And she said, I must take the shoes from you and we must bury it. And I said, not my shoes. My shoes, they're mine. You cannot touch it. I don't want them to be ugly. I want my shoes. I want my shiny shoes. And she said, no, we must bury it. And she buried it. And she covered it with dirt, and I was hysterical. I lay down on the ground, hysterically crying, I want my shoes back. And my mother said to me, someday you will understand what this is all about. And I didn't understand. I couldn't accept it. And she took my hand, and she wanted to take me back to my house, but I wouldn't leave my shoes. I stayed out for a while. And then eventually I was cried out, and years later I understood what it was all about. The point of the burying of the shoes, that they look old, used, they could not look new, and she wanted me to wear it, and I wouldn't wear it. I would not wear these ugly shoes, but she said, you have to wear it. And even though she tried to explain it to me, I could not accept it. I could not understand it. But I had no choice. I had to wear it. But they were ugliest shoes I ever owned. Dirtiest, let's put it. Well, she cleaned it, but they looked very worn. And yeah, those things I do remember.
Mm-hmm. Your father and mother understood what was happening in a way that obviously you could not.
Right.
You do write in your book that a relative, an uncle, came to them
From
in
Israel.
1938 and begged them to leave Czechoslovakia and to go to what was then Palestine.
Right. My uncle begged my parents go to Palestine because there is a war going on here. And my parents said, how can we put all this together, leave all this comfort? They will never come and touch us. We are partly Germans, we are partly Czech. They won't do any harm to us. And it cannot happen. Nothing bad can happen to us. Pišťany, the town is still all right. We can still make a living here. We are still comfortable. We can pull all this together and get out of here. And they didn't believe. They absolutely didn't believe that anything could happen. The first hiding that I do remember was on a farm. You see, in our store, a lot of peasants came to buy different things, and they liked my parents. My parents were very friendly. They treated each one very nicely. You know, it was a nice family business. And when I realized what was going on, I mean, seeing my parents packing and running and all this thing, the next thing I know, we are on a farm with peasants, and we are in hiding. And these peasants were very nice, and they allowed us in a back room to stay together and hide. They were hoping things would calm down. And one day, Germans came to inspect. Could be the Linker Guards. You know, I must say, to me, it was like Germans, because they all looked alike, with those boots, with the uniforms, with everything. It was like, the fear was there looking at them. And they came to inspect on a truck. They came to inspect their farms. And they came to this farm that we were hiding. In their little farmhouse, they had a little back room. And the 8 of us were put in there. It was comfortable. It was small, but we were safe. And we were hiding there. So it was a room that wasn't seen. And
all of you in one room?
All of us in one room, yes.
Day and night?
Day and night, but the room was big enough for us.
Where did you sleep?
Some slept on the floor. There were 2 beds in the room. So we managed, like 4 of us slept on a bed, the 2 older ones on the floor.
How do you make sense of this?
I don't. I just accepted and went along with it. It didn't make any sense. I just held on to my sisters or to my brothers. It made no sense to me. I couldn't understand why and what. I just knew that I couldn't let go of my mother's skirt or my father's hand. I had to hold on to something, and that's what I was doing. I knew I couldn't speak. I knew I didn't have the freedom of crying or whining, or I couldn't. It was forbidden. And you as a child, when you know it's forbidden, the instinct, the fear is there no matter what you do.
How much fear?
All the fear you can imagine in your body.
You terrified?
Petrified. Petrified. But as long as I had my family, because it would have been worse without them. So at least I had them. But suddenly, while these linker guards are checking, the peasants said to them, come, let's have beer, let's drink, and let's have some drinks before you start to do this. So of course, they love to drink. Some of them stayed outside. Some of them came into the kitchen. Everything was going on in the kitchen. And they drank, and they drank. And the next minute, I know I have to go desperately to the bathroom, desperately. And my mother doesn't know what to do. And we cannot use, there is only one bathroom on the main floor right next to the kitchen. And she wouldn't take a chance, not that I look Jewish, but they would want to play with me, ask me questions. She didn't trust me enough not to speak. So she and my father decided to send us where the peasants worked, out on the field to the outhouse, and which was quite a distance away. And I went out, and I saw the linker guards, but it was nothing. And I walked all the way to the field, and I went to the outhouse, and I couldn't even reach the door. I mean, it was, I think you know what an outhouse is. And finally, I reached the latch and kept pushing it up, and it just jumped open, and I went in. And the seat of the outhouse reached up to here. So I figured out if I climb on top of it, I will be able to sit on it. So I climbed on top of it, and I fell into the hole. I fell into that, I don't even know what to call it, that smut and that dirt and that filth. I fell into it. And this outhouse was sitting on a stream where the current would always clean it. And the current got hold of my feet and was pulling me under the seat, because the outhouse is sitting on a piece of land on the field, and they dug a hole, and the stream is underneath it. And I am being pulled under the current, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not possible. It cannot be happening. I don't want to go underneath there. I just knew I don't want to go underneath there. I had to stay. So I held on to the piece of wood so that it shouldn't be pulling. In the meantime, I was covered with all the dirt you can imagine. And it was terrifying, talking about fear and being petrified and being, I don't think I could even find the right words. In the book I tried to say it, but anyhow, I'm like that, I don't know for how long. Screaming, the voice doesn't even come through. I could have been screaming and lost my voice. Nothing was helping me to get out of here. And finally, I see a shimmer light coming through a window. Not even a window, there was no window. The planks were separated from each other. To me, it looked like an opening. And light came shimmering through. And as it came shimmering through, the planks was put in such a way that it shimmered down to the inside of the seat of the wooden planks, and I saw nail heads, rusty nail heads sticking out. And I said, oh my God, I must grab hold of these nails and do something. And I must tell you, to me it was like a miracle. I held on to those nails, and it got me out of there. I climbed out of there, and I fell over the seat. I climbed myself, set myself on the seat, laying down, and fell over, and walked out. and dirt clinging. And at that moment, I felt there was a hand pulling me up. There was some strength coming, pulling me out of that ditch. And I got out, and of course, by then the Hlinka, this took time, the Hlinka gods were gone. My parents, my mother was so concerned, where was I? They found me in a corner, sitting, crying, totally not being to get hold of me. My mother took me as filthy as I was and just held me in her arms.
What you're describing is something heroic by the peasants who were hiding you.
Oh yes, oh yes. Some of these peasants deserve a lot of credit because they really hid us, and they hid some other Jews too. And some of them were very noble and very much protective of the Jews, some of them. After these Hlinka gods came, they knew there was danger. They would come back, and they would come back looking. So they knew right then and there we couldn't stay at the place. It would be too dangerous for both, for them and for us. So they advised us to move on.
Where did you go? Do you have any sense of where you went?
I quite don't remember quite, but a lot of this information is from my brother, who did remember. He did remember we went to other hiding places. We traveled from one city to another city. We hid in apartments that were empty till somebody noticed us, and we had to move on. And then we went, we were back in, I think, in Bratislava or in Piščany, I'm not sure, where they caught all the Jews, and we had to go to Žilina, where they had lagers set up for all the Jews to be put into the lager. That was under instructions of the Germans. But this was the Hlinka card who carried it out. They even paid the Germans to get us, to kill us. They were so cruel, these Hlinka gods. They were unbelievable. Originally, we were in lager. We went to lager, and my father got these papers as non-Jews, and he got us out, all of us, and we moved into an apartment house that we lived as non-Jews. And the betrayal came from one of the landlords of the building, but we lived nicely there, and the children went to school. There was no problem. Everything was fine. And then one morning, when the betrayal happened, the Hlinka gods came. It looked like the Gestapo came in my eyes. I was sitting on the floor with my parents. I was playing. My other siblings were all in school. And there was a big knock on the door, which scared all of us. We panicked, and my father signaled quiet. My mother picked up her knitting. My father picked up the newspaper. I was naturally playing on the floor, not knowing quite what's going on. He picked himself up, opened the door, and these two guards in shiny leather boots and the uniform and everything came in. Papers. My father gave them papers that he had, and he said, we'll have to look into it. We have to take it into the office. And my father said, I cannot give you the papers because we need papers in case somebody else. Don't worry, everything will be all right. In the meantime, my two other siblings were coming home for lunch, and we all had lunch. And then my father took me to the nursery kindergarten, what was for the kids there, to school, and he came back. And the next thing I know, in school, the kindergarten teacher says to me, I have to take you. And I see at the tree my brother and sister are hysterically crying, and the teacher takes me over there, and she says, your family were taken away. And I held on to my siblings, and I said, I'd like my parents to be here, and I would like them to be part of us. And then somehow some people came and they took us all apart and took us into hiding. We had to be separated because what happened was we became fugitives. Now 4 children became fugitive. They took my mother, they took my father, they took my sister, and they took my brother. And the 4 children were looked for, and some underground people came and they said, where are the 4 children? By the time they came to school, we were gone. And I don't remember the hiding period, but the next thing I know is somehow we got a word that when my parents the next day or day after were taken to camp, they would come and they would let us know that what time and when it's going to happen. And my brother found out, and he picked me up wherever I was, and took me to the train station. And we went looking for our parents, thinking we will join them. And it was a whole big thing. The train was cattle cars. The Germans were there placing people different places, yelling, all guns and everything. And I stood there with my brother at a distance, still trying to find my parents. And we had a hard time finding them. And eventually we did see my parents, and I yelled, Mama. I yelled out, Papa. And my father signaled to my brother, quiet, move away, keep away, don't come near us. And suddenly my brother wouldn't allow me to go. I started screaming, I want my mother, I want my father. And a guard came over, put his rifle against my head, and said, if you don't stop screaming, I'm going to throw you in there. And here it is, my second experience, that I'm feeling I don't want to be there. Something bad is going there. It was like an instinct. I don't want to be there. I want to be here. I stopped crying and stood still and watched my parents go. I lost everything. It was it's like everything of me went with them. We saw the doors being locked. We didn't see them. I didn't see my siblings. And then all we saw was the little windows that were like cages and hands just waving.
What does a person feel at that moment?
Nothing. Like there is nothing left.
The experience for you as a child at that moment must have just been horrific in ways that I could imagine you still don't even fully comprehend.
No, you just hit the word. Today I look at myself and I say, this is another child. This is not me. I couldn't have done this. I couldn't have gone through this. And I really say, when I talk about my book, I say it's a child's story. It's a child's story that was at the wrong place at the wrong time. but it's my story. And it's really my faith and hope that I had that gave me the courage to survive. That's what this book is all about.
And you do credit your father with giving you a lot of that strength.
Oh yes, he screamed at the train station, "Stay alive, live." He screamed and yelled. They didn't know exactly who he's yelling to or whatever, but he yelled, "Stay alive, live." And my brother understood it. He knew it. But I, as a little girl, couldn't quite comprehend it.
You never saw your parents again.
No.
You do know what happened to them because you found out much later in
Yes.
life what happened to them.
It's it hurts. It's deep. It hurts.
Your parents were killed, and the siblings that were with them were killed. You lost them all. You know, I'm very, very sorry.
Life goes on.
You ultimately going to leave Czechoslovakia,
Yes.
and you walk.
Yes.
Where do you walk?
We walk through the fields in the snow and very cold. And the interesting part is we were at peasants, hiding till it was all set with my aunt to go through it. And she arranged it that we should be taken to Hungary. And we, the peasants felt they can take my brother across the border, but definitely not me because I'm too young, too small to walk it, to go, they just wanted me to stay behind, and they were childless, so they thought, here is a child, cute, they can keep me. And they thought I will stay behind, and I wouldn't oppose to it. But I overheard them talking. And what happened was we were hiding in the attic in the straw. They had these straw things. And my brother and I went to sleep, but I never went to sleep because I heard them. And I held on to my brother, so when they come to get my brother, I will never let go of him. This is all I had in my life. So they came like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning to get him to walk through the fields. And they tried to separate us, but I was screaming, I just won't let go of him. And sure enough, they couldn't handle me. I was impossible. And they said, okay, but you have to walk, they told me. I said, yeah, I will walk, no problem, you know. But after one kilometer, I couldn't handle it. And I couldn't walk. And she was kind enough, she picked me up on her back. And as she picked me up and took me on her back, motorcycle Germans came, motorcycle. They were always looking. We never walked on the highways. We strictly walked in the field. And they came and they said, who are they, what they're eating, and all that, and what food we have, and where are we going at this time of the day or morning, so early. And the peasant was very well prepared and just talked herself out of it. And finally we made the border, and we got on the train, and we were checked and everything. Things did happen, but main thing is we came to Budapest. And my aunt arranged from Czechoslovakia that she should transfer us from there to Budapest, where another aunt lived, where my mother's family lived. And the peasant was paid for delivery, and that was it. No problem. They took us, my brother and I, straight to my aunt's place.
Your aunt's name?
My Aunt Margaret, and she lived in the main section of Budapest. And she took us upstairs, and she knocked on the door, and my aunt opens the door, and she's shocked. Who are you? Who are these? And so she had absolutely no idea we were being delivered, because there was no communication from Czechoslovakia into Hungary at that point. Hungary at that time was okay with the Germans, and Czechoslovakia was already at war. So my aunt had no idea who we are, and she said, "Who are you?" So the peasant explained, "These are the children that I'm told to deliver to you." And my aunt said, "Impossible. The law here is if anybody takes in any refugees, they're going to be shot. We cannot take a chance on my family to endanger. They are much safer with you, with the peasant, with you." And she says, "Do me a favor, take these children and you take good care of them, make sure they're all right, but I cannot take them in." And the door got shut. And the peasant took us into a street bench and put us down. Part of the street bench was like in a park bench, and put us down on the bench and left my brother and me. And basically, we only spoke Czech and German.
Is there just the two of you now?
Just the two of us left. The other two, what happened was they were somewhere else in hiding. My aunt had one of them, or maybe both of them. You see, I didn't really know deep down their story, what happened to their lives, because they never spoke about it. But the little things that I managed to pick up was that my sister was sent to another aunt, and my brother was sent somewhere else. So everybody was always in hiding. When the police found us, they put us into prison.
Where did they find you?
On the park bench.
So when we left you a moment ago on the park bench,
Right.
the police do find you.
Yes, the police found us.
When they put you in prison, do they put you in prison as Jews?
They put us as criminals. As criminals, because foreign people were not allowed to be in Hungary. Refugees, anybody like that. But they figured we were Jews, mostly, because we were refugees. And they had to put us into prison. We were criminals. And we were put into a criminal prison.
At this point in history, Jews are not being rounded up in Hungary.
Oh, no, no. Life was very peaceful in Budapest at that time.
So you had violated the law by being, in essence, illegally in the country.
Right, illegal.
But it wasn't because you were Jewish.
No,
Okay.
no.
And then the Stern family, the Stern mother, the husband and wife,
Right.
who have this very wealthy restaurant,
Right,
the famous
right.
restaurant, they hear that two Jewish children
Right.
have been arrested as criminals
Right.
and are in prison.
Right,
And they come and they save you.
right.
And in essence, they become your surrogate mother and father.
They became my real mother and father. That's how much they loved me. They gave me the love beyond words. They were childless. They had a child many years back who died, and they were childless. And here is this little girl who calls them Anyu Apu, mother and father, immediately, because they asked me to do that. I called them, and they loved me so much, they put a bed in their bedroom to make sure how safe I am and how secure. And they nurtured me back to myself. They gave me that love, the nurturing that I needed so badly. And they became my life. I mean, my parents, they were my parents. And they felt I was their child. But only me. My siblings, on the other hand, they were kind to them, but they were foreign children. I was their child.
How did that happen? Why do you think they made the distinction between you, who became their daughter, and your siblings who did not become their children?
My sibling understood who they were. They understood they were not parents. They were kind people who were taking care of them. So they, maybe from themselves, they couldn't connect. I was a lost child, and I was hungry, so hungry for that love and care and for parents, that I immediately adopted them because of the love they gave me. When the war broke out in Budapest, my step-parents made arrangements to go into hiding into Glass House, which was run by Karl Lutz and Raoul Wallenberg. They ran these safe houses. They are called the safe houses. And they arranged to go there because it really looked like they're invading Hungary. And they got papers, and we went into hiding into the Glass House. At that point, I wasn't with my brothers and my sister. They were arranged to go different places. We went into the Glass House, thousands of Jews being hidden underground. It's called the Glass House because originally it was a glass factory. And we were hidden underneath the building. Nobody really knew about these safe houses. The basement, they were really not basements, they were like caves underneath it. You just had from one stone area to another stone area where you could hide. And it was cold and very damp. We hid by daytime, and at night we were allowed to go out, take fresh air into the courtyard of the building, which was very big. And I was with my stepfather, and my stepmother, who had the famous kosher restaurant, she hid us. She basically was in the kitchen of the building. One day, the word got out that the what do you call the Hungarians? Oh,
You talking about the Arrow Cross?
Cross found out that there's another name for them. They found out that they are Jews being hidden. And they invaded the Glass House, and they took all the Jews out.
What time of day is this?
This was the daytime.
During the daytime?
During the daytime, they took them because we were in hiding at that point. They came down, they took us all out, they lined us up. In the meantime, my mother was hiding in the kitchen in a pantry with the other cooks. And they took us all out, and they lined us up.
And you were standing with your father?
I was standing holding my father's hand.
And you were scared?
Scared was the word. I was horrified, because I knew now that it's going to be killing. I knew that. I understood that at this point it's going to be killing, and I heard shots. And the Arrow Cross was there, and the Nazis. The Arrow Cross was worse than even Nazis, I must say. They were terrible. They wanted to get rid of all the Jews, and they started shooting one by one the Jews who were lined up. And I know it's going to be my turn. And suddenly I feel I got all wet. It must have been that panic, not realizing, but I'm all wet. And I'm not even caring about that. I'm just now standing on the side of my father, hiding behind his leg so I wouldn't be observed. And he's holding my hand very tight. He cannot really pick me up where I want to be picked up. He cannot, so I'm holding him behind, like sideways to the back. And I'm saying to myself, I know it's going to be my turn to be killed. But I don't want to be killed. I don't want to be dead. So what I'm going to do is, when it's soon my turn, I will lie down with the other dead and make believe I'm dead. This way they don't have to shoot me. And this is all that's going on in my mind. I'm not going to be killed. I'm not going to be killed. And just then, somebody reported to the Red Cross. We were on the Red Cross, Swiss Red Cross, that there is shooting going on illegal because we were under the security of the Red Cross, and it was stopped.
The Red Cross arrives.
The Red Cross arrived, and it had to be stopped because it was illegal. That shooting was their game, or their toy, or they got drunk, or whatever happened. And thank God, it was over. Soon after that, the war was over.
But it was simply luck.
It was, oh my
that
God.
They arrived when they arrived.
Oh my God. Somebody was shot because he reported it on the phone. He called the other side. There is killing going on here. Immediately notified the Red Cross and come over. So somebody sacrificed his life for it. And it was done, and it never happened again. Soon after that, the war was over. But what I understood when the Russians came, I remember it like yesterday. We were all cheering, we were all happy. We all took red cloth and threw it out of our windows because it was red. And we were very happy. We were very happy that the frightening moments were over. That I understood, that I wasn't frightened. We were happy. We were trying, nothing was normal again because bad things continued to happen. Like I lost my mother, she was sick, and she died. And
You're talking about Mrs. Stern.
Mrs. Stern, yes. And then I was very, very sick also, with nightmares of the war, and I had a spot on my lung from the cave that I was hiding in. So I was very sick, and the nightmares came every night back to me from the war. When I was very sick, I had to go to Tatra Mountains to recuperate. But there was I think it was ran by Youth Aliyah, by one of the Jewish Congress, I think ran it at that time. And I was sick and I had to recoup, and there was a Jewish orphanage in Tatra Mountains, and they put all the orphans there who were sick. A lot of children got sick. And we were there, and when I got finally healthy, we went to Nové Mesto in Czechoslovakia.
Who was we?
I had a girlfriend, so maybe she didn't even go at that time. I went basically to Nové Mesto, where I made a very good friend, to Nadvahom, and it was run by people by the name of Fogel, and they were very kind, very good, but we had no money. There was no orphanage, had no money, and at that time the convent was right nearby. There was a convent and a Catholic school, and they came and offered to educate us. They were very kind. We went there, and they were very kind, and of course they were hoping we would become Catholics. That was the period after the war when they were trying to get a lot of these Jewish children to become Christians, Catholics. But they were good to us, gave us food, gave us education. I even went to the church and I crossed myself, and at that point I even felt a little bit Christian. I felt very comfortable being part of something, and it was a good feeling. And I had family who lived in Nitra, And they had a very good friend, Dr. Schoenfeld, who used to do these kinder transports. And the last kinder transport he did was in 1948. And my aunt said, my mother's sister said to him, that I have a child in Nové Mesto in an orphanage. Would you take her to London? Since you're looking for orphans, would you take her to London? So it was arranged that he came to Nové Mesto, and he asked a lot of these orphan children to know if they are Jewish or not, if they know Shema. And I had at that time a little girlfriend who didn't know Shema, and I taught her Shema to say, so in case she has to say it, she knows it. So she's Jewish. She was Jewish.
But she didn't know how to say the Shema.
She didn't know how to say Shema.
So you taught her.
So I taught her, yeah. So, so he took us as orphans.
He came? Did he
He
ask you to
came.
say the Shema?
Oh yeah, he not only to us, he went all around and found a lot of orphan children.
Say the Shema for me.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
You're a Jew, he said. I will take you.
Yes.
Did you like London at all?
I loved London, yes. I loved it.
Because?
I loved it because finally it was a place I didn't have to be frightened. The only thing I felt that I was alone. But I didn't have to be frightened anymore. I didn't have to think about war. I didn't have to, it was finally safe. It was finally, I could be among my own people. And that felt good. I went to Israel again because of sense of belonging. My siblings were there. Whether I was Zionistic to go to Israel, it wasn't there. I didn't have yet, I wasn't bred in it. You see, I feel I went through so many different educations that it wasn't yet sitting in me. Maybe the same thing was with religion. It never stayed with me. So I was religious, but not because it came from within, but because the circumstances. Being in Israel, I am 13 years old and 14, and now I'm starting my life. I'm starting to know that I don't want to be in Kfar Batya because that's more of a kibbutz life. I want to be more in Tel Aviv because that's more of a city life. Living in London, and I was always looking for the better, to do the better of me. I didn't always have the chance because I had no connection. I knew nobody. I had no finances. I had nothing. I had to create it myself. And I knew that I wanted to be in a better school, in the city I wanted to live. And sure enough, I got it. Thank God. And I was there a couple of years and got my education. And I got very involved with the Mizrahi women at that time that was taking care of me. Because in Kfar Batya, it was their children's village, where I became a tourist guide for all the American women who came to check where the money came from. And I kind of enjoyed it. And also, I was a nurse, a nurse's help. I was giving the aspirins, I was taking the temperatures, and I kind of liked that whole different life there.
And did you become fluent in Hebrew?
Later on in school, I would say I'm not fluent, but I do speak it, and I love to speak it.
Isn't that
and
something?
I seek it out, and today I feel Israel is in my blood veins.
So over time, you do fall in love with Israel.
Oh yes, very much so.
Do you remember why, how?
I fell in love. It just made me grow up to be so part of it, so spiritual. So this is where we belong. This is us. Everybody's one of us. Everybody's part of us. We are not different from anybody else. And that's such a wonderful, strong feeling. And that runs within you, and you feel it. And I adore the language. I adore, even when I studied the Tanakh, it was like every time I went to Israel, later on in life, I would write to my children, I'm walking on Bible. Bible is alive within me. And they would say, oh, mother is going crazy. Mother is, you know.
Did you ever fall in love with the Jewish tradition and Judaism?
I love the tradition of it for what it stands for, the meaning, and everything around it. I think the traditions makes us in the human beings we are.
You do write about how moved you are when you see your son bless your grandson with the same blessing your father gave you. You remember?
It's deep. It's painful. You know what's the amazing thing about it? I never taught my children about it. And originally I saw it in my son-in-law, Mark. And then I see it in my son, Robert. It's beautiful. And now my grandchildren, my grandson-in-law is doing it to my great-grandchild. And it's amazing how my children kept the religion, and it went from children to children. It's like a circle of something. There is something very strong in religion that gets hold of you and does not let it go. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
You're an extraordinary human being. You've written a beautiful book. I hope everybody picks this up. A candle in the heart. But it is wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you.
And there is a power that comes from you that I hope everyone who has had the privilege of hearing you, listening to you, I hope they feel they know you now. And it's been a gift. I thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself with me and being willing to sit here for hours telling me this story.
It's an honor for me to be with you.
Thank you, darling. I wish you the very best. Come here.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support Shalom TV with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the Shalom TV website homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive on DVD with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.